Welcome back to the Emma podcast. I'm Anna.
And I'm Eric. Today we're discussing something that is quietly reshaping how regulatory agencies operate across the globe. Not just how they review submissions, but how they anticipate risk, monitor compliance, and allocate oversight resources.
We're talking about predictive regulation.
For decades, regulatory oversight was largely reactive. Agencies reviewed submissions, conducted inspections, evaluated adverse events, and responded to issues as they arose. The model was built around documentation review and episodic enforcement.
But that model is evolving.
Today, agencies like the FDA, EMA, and other global regulators are increasingly leveraging data analytics, real-world evidence, signal detection systems, and risk-based algorithms to anticipate issues before they escalate.
And that shift has significant implications for regulated organizations.
Predictive regulation doesn't mean regulators are replacing review processes with automation. It means they are augmenting decision-making with data-driven insight.
For example, inspection prioritization is no longer random or purely cyclical. Agencies analyze historical compliance data, recall history, adverse event trends, supply chain disruptions, and manufacturing complexity to determine which facilities present higher risk.
That means inspection frequency and depth may be influenced by predictive indicators long before an organization is aware of concern.
The same applies to pharmacovigilance and post-market surveillance. Regulators are increasingly using data aggregation tools and real-world evidence platforms to identify safety signals across populations. This is faster than traditional reporting models allowed.
In other words, oversight is becoming more continuous.
This has important consequences for life sciences companies.
Organizations can no longer assume that regulatory interaction occurs primarily at submission milestones or scheduled inspections. Instead, regulators are analyzing patterns across submissions, deviations, inspection findings, and safety reports in real time.
That changes the risk landscape.
Data integrity becomes even more critical. If agencies are using predictive models to assess compliance risk, inconsistencies in documentation, recurring minor deviations, or delayed CAPA closures may contribute to a broader risk profile.
Even when individual issues appear manageable, aggregated patterns can influence regulatory perception.
This is where enterprise-level quality systems matter.
Predictive regulation rewards organizations that demonstrate consistent, transparent, and well-documented control. Agencies are looking at trend data, not just isolated findings.
There is also a broader shift toward digital regulatory submissions and data standardization.
Structured data formats allow agencies to analyze trends across sponsors and therapeutic areas more efficiently. When data is standardized and machine-readable, regulators can compare performance indicators at scale.
That creates both opportunity and exposure.
Organizations that maintain strong data governance and submission discipline benefit from clarity and consistency. Those with fragmented systems may struggle under increased scrutiny.
Another dimension of predictive regulation involves manufacturing oversight.
Agencies increasingly evaluate supply chain complexity, capacity constraints, and global sourcing patterns when assessing risk. Disruptions in one region may influence oversight in another.
This interconnected view means that operational transparency becomes more important than ever.
Companies must understand that regulators may see patterns emerging across facilities, suppliers, and product portfolios that individual teams do not.
The concept of predictive regulation also intersects with emerging technologies.
As AI and advanced analytics become more integrated into regulatory review processes, agencies are improving their ability to detect anomalies, inconsistencies, and outliers.
That does not eliminate human judgment, but it enhances it.
For regulated organizations, this means that preparation must extend beyond traditional compliance checklists, as
It requires proactive risk management.
it requires internal analytics capabilities.
It requires the ability to identify trends within your own data before regulators do.
And that's a meaningful shift.
Instead of asking, "Are we compliant today?" organizations increasingly need to ask, "What signals might regulators detect in our data over time?"
Predictive regulation does not lower standards, it raises them,
It encourages continuous quality management rather than episodic correction.
and it favors organizations that invest in integrated data systems, transparent documentation practices, and cross functional oversight.
In this episode, we're going to explore how predictive regulatory models are emerging across FDA, EMA, and other global agencies. We'll examine how data analytics is shaping inspection strategy, post-market surveillance, and submission review.
And most importantly, we'll discuss what organizations can do to align with this evolving oversight model before predictive insights turn into enforcement action.
Because regulatory strategy is no longer just about responding effectively.
It's about anticipating intelligently.
To understand predictive regulation more clearly, it helps to look at how agencies are operationalizing data.
At the FDA, for example, risk based inspection models have been evolving for years. Facilities are not selected for inspection randomly. They are prioritized based on product type, compliance history, recall data, adverse event trends, manufacturing complexity, and even external signals such as supply chain disruptions.
This means regulatory oversight is increasingly informed by data patterns rather than fixed inspection cycles.
If a site has recurring minor deviations in environmental monitoring or repeated documentation inconsistencies, those patterns may elevate its risk profile even if no single issue appears severe. When viewed in aggregate, data tells a broader story.
EMA and other global agencies are moving in similar directions. Enhanced pharmacovigilance databases, centralized safety reporting systems, and cross-border data sharing allow regulators to detect safety signals across regions faster than before.
Real world evidence is also playing a larger role in regulatory evaluation. As patient level data becomes more accessible, agencies are analyzing treatment outcomes, utilization trends, and post market performance in near real time.
This creates a more dynamic oversight environment.
For sponsors and manufacturers, this means that regulatory engagement is no longer confined to submission milestones or scheduled inspections. Data flows continuously, and regulators have increasing visibility into performance metrics.
One of the most important implications of this shift is the need for internal data maturity.
Organizations must have the ability to monitor their own trends and deviations, CAPAs, complaints, and adverse events in a structured way. Predictive regulation favors companies that detect and address emerging patterns before external scrutiny occurs.
For example, if complaint data shows a gradual increase in a specific issue across multiple markets, waiting for a formal signal from regulators is no longer a viable strategy. Internal analytics should identify that trend early and trigger investigation.
This requires integrated systems.
Fragmented quality management systems, siloed safety databases, and disconnected manufacturing records make it difficult to see enterprise-level patterns. Predictive regulation rewards transparency and integration.
Another area where predictive oversight is emerging is submission quality.
Agencies increasingly analyze patterns in regulatory filings, inconsistencies in data formatting, recurring deficiencies across submissions, or delayed responses to information requests can influence regulatory confidence.
Standardized electronic submission formats enable agencies to compare performance across sponsors. That visibility means submission discipline matters more than ever.
It is not only the scientific content of a submission that matters, it is also the consistency, completeness, and clarity of the data structure itself.
Manufacturing oversight is evolving in similar ways.
Supply chain transparency has become a priority, particularly after global disruptions highlighted vulnerabilities. Agencies now assess not only facility compliance, but also sourcing stability and contingency planning.
If a company repeatedly experiences supply interruptions or struggles to maintain continuity across manufacturing sites, regulators may view that as a systemic risk indicator.
This reinforces the importance of proactive risk management and documented contingency planning.
Predictive regulation also intersects with digital transformation.
As companies implement advanced analytics, AI tools, and automated quality systems, regulators are evaluating how those technologies are governed. Agencies may request documentation on algorithm validation, system controls, and audit trail integrity.
This creates a dual expectation. Organizations must leverage data effectively while maintaining control and traceability.
The broader theme is continuity.
Regulatory agencies are shifting toward continuous monitoring rather than episodic review. That does not eliminate traditional inspections or submission reviews, but it enhances them with data driven insight.
For companies, the adjustment is strategic.
Compliance cannot be viewed as a periodic checkpoint. It must be embedded into daily operations with real time visibility.
Predictive regulation encourages organizations to move from reactive remediation to anticipatory governance.
That means investing in enterprise dashboards, trend analysis capabilities, and cross functional oversight committees that review emerging signals regularly.
It also means strengthening documentation discipline. When data is aggregated and analyzed algorithmically, inconsistencies become more visible.
Clear procedures, timely CAPA closure, and structured deviation management are no longer simply best practices. They are essential components of a predictive compliance strategy.
Ultimately, predictive regulation reflects the same technological transformation occurring across healthcare more broadly.
Data is becoming more accessible, analytics are becoming more sophisticated, decision making is becoming more informed.
Regulators are adapting accordingly.
Organizations that align with this shift will find that predictive oversight does not create additional burden. Instead, it creates clarity.
When systems are integrated, trends are monitored proactively, and governance structures are strong, predictive regulation becomes an extension of good operational discipline.
The challenge is ensuring that internal visibility keeps pace with external oversight.
And that is where strategic regulatory alignment becomes critical.
As predictive regulation continues to mature, the practical question for organizations becomes straightforward. How do we prepare for a regulatory environment that is increasingly data informed and risk prioritized?
The first step is visibility.
Many companies collect large volumes of quality and operational data, but not all of that data is synthesized in a way that supports proactive decision making. Deviation logs, complaint records, audit findings, CAPA timelines, and safety reports often sit in separate systems managed by different functions.
Predictive regulation makes those silos risky.
If regulators are analyzing aggregated data across inspection history, adverse events, and manufacturing performance, organizations must be able to do the same internally. Enterprise level dashboards and structured trend analysis reviews are becoming essential tools, not optional enhancements.
Quarterly management reviews should move beyond static metrics and examine directional signals. Are certain deviation categories increasing gradually? Are specific sites experiencing longer CAPA closure timelines? Are supplier-related non-conformances clustering in one region?
Patterns matter more than isolated events.
The second step is strengthening governance structures.
Predictive oversight favors organizations that demonstrate disciplined cross functional accountability. Risk signals identified in one function must be escalated appropriately and evaluated within a broader operational context.
For example, if pharmacovigilance teams detect emerging safety signals, those insights should be shared with regulatory, manufacturing, and quality leadership. Similarly, manufacturing variability trends may have downstream implications for product performance and reporting.
Predictive regulation rewards integration.
Another important consideration is inspection readiness.
Traditional inspection preparation often focused on document availability and personnel training immediately prior to regulatory visits. While those elements remain important, predictive regulation changes the preparation model.
Inspection readiness becomes continuous.
If agencies are selecting sites based on evolving risk indicators, organizations must assume that inspection can occur at any point when patterns raise concern. That means deviation management, CAPA effectiveness, and documentation accuracy must remain consistently strong.
Mock inspections should incorporate data review exercises. Teams should ask not only whether documentation is complete, but whether trend narratives make sense. Can leadership explain why certain metrics fluctuate? Is there a documented rationale for recurring issues that have been risk assessed appropriately?
Narrative clarity matters in a data driven environment.
Submission strategy also benefits from predictive alignment.
When preparing regulatory filings, organizations should evaluate their submission history. Are there recurring information requests in certain sections? Are timelines consistently compressed, leading to avoidable deficiencies?
Agencies increasingly track sponsor performance patterns. Improving submission discipline reduces long-term regulatory friction.
Another dimension of predictive regulation involves transparency expectations.
Regulators are placing greater emphasis on early communication of emerging risks. Companies that proactively disclose potential issues, supported by structured risk assessments and mitigation plans, often maintain stronger regulatory relationships than those that wait for enforcement triggers.
Predictive oversight encourages earlier engagement rather than delayed correction.
Technology governance is another area of focus.
As agencies incorporate analytics into review processes, they expect companies to demonstrate similar rigor in managing digital systems. Audit trails, data lineage documentation, and validation protocols for automated systems must be clearly defined.
If predictive models are identifying anomalies, organizations must be able to trace how their own systems generated and stored relevant data.
Data integrity remains foundational.
The broader implication of predictive regulation is cultural.
Organizations must shift from a compliance mindset centered on meeting minimum requirements to one focused on sustained operational transparency. Leadership engagement becomes critical. Senior management must review trend data regularly and ensure that resources are allocated to emerging risk areas.
Predictive regulation does not necessarily increase enforcement. It increases visibility.
When visibility increases, inconsistency becomes more difficult to conceal. Conversely, disciplined systems become easier to defend.
This environment ultimately benefits organizations that invest in structured quality systems and integrated data infrastructure. Continuous monitoring, proactive risk management, and transparent documentation create resilience.
The future of regulatory oversight will likely continue evolving toward greater use of analytics, cross agency collaboration, and real time signal detection. Companies that prepare now by strengthening internal predictive capabilities will adapt more smoothly.
Predictive regulation is not about replacing human judgment. It is about enhancing it with data-driven insight.
For organizations willing to align with that shift, the result is not increased burden, but increased clarity.
And that clarity strengthens both compliance and long-term strategic stability.
Another important dimension of predictive regulation is how it influences regulatory trust.
Historically, trust was built through periodic interactions. A successful inspection, a well-prepared submission, or a proactive response to an inquiry reinforced regulatory confidence. Those moments still matter, but they are now supplemented by continuous data visibility.
If agencies are observing patterns across submissions, safety reports, manufacturing performance, and inspection outcomes, trust becomes cumulative. It is built through consistency over time.
For organizations, this means that isolated excellence is not enough. Strong performance must be sustained across sites, product lines, and reporting cycles. Predictive models do not evaluate a single moment in isolation. They evaluate trajectories.
That shift encourages a more disciplined approach to enterprise oversight.
Global organizations, in particular, must ensure harmonization across regions. Variability in documentation practices, deviation classification, or supplier oversight between sites can generate inconsistent data signals. Even if each site meets minimum compliance thresholds, inconsistency across the network may elevate perceived risk.
Standardization becomes a strategic advantage.
Harmonized quality systems, aligned SOP structures, and centralized data governance frameworks create cleaner data patterns. Cleaner patterns reduce ambiguity when regulators evaluate performance trends.
There is also an emerging interplay between predictive regulation and innovation.
As companies adopt advanced therapies, decentralized trials, digital endpoints, and AI-enabled development tools, regulatory agencies are simultaneously building their own analytical capacity. Agencies want to understand not only the scientific merit of innovation, but also the data structures supporting it.
Predictive oversight may increasingly focus on how innovative platforms are governed. For example, if AI tools are used in trial design or signal detection, regulators may examine validation frameworks, version control practices, and performance monitoring mechanisms.
This does not discourage innovation. It encourages structured innovation.
Organizations must ensure that emerging technologies are integrated within controlled governance systems. When new tools generate data that feeds into regulatory review, traceability and auditability are essential.
Another area influenced by predictive regulation is enforcement discretion.
In a data rich environment, agencies can prioritize interventions based on risk magnitude. That means enforcement may become more targeted rather than broadly applied. Facilities or sponsors with clear, sustained patterns of strong compliance may experience more streamlined oversight, while those with recurring signals may face deeper scrutiny.
This creates both incentive and accountability.
Companies that invest in proactive compliance management position themselves for regulatory efficiency. Those that neglect trend analysis may encounter intensified oversight.
The practical implication is that compliance strategy becomes more strategic.
It is no longer sufficient to respond effectively when issues arise. Organizations must monitor early indicators and allocate resources before escalation occurs.
This requires mature internal analytics capabilities.
Quality leadership teams should review performance dashboards regularly, not only to confirm compliance status, but to identify directional movement. Slight increases in deviation rates, longer investigation timelines, or incremental safety reporting delays may seem manageable individually. Viewed collectively over time, they may form a pattern.
Predictive regulation encourages organizations to act on those early signals.
Another factor to consider is external transparency.
Public databases, recall reports, and safety disclosures contribute to the broader regulatory data ecosystem. Agencies can cross-reference internal data with publicly available information. Discrepancies between public reporting and internal documentation can raise questions.
Consistency across internal records and external communications is critical.
As predictive oversight becomes more embedded, regulatory relationships may also evolve.
Agencies increasingly emphasize collaborative engagement, particularly when sponsors demonstrate proactive risk management. Early communication of emerging concerns, supported by data driven analysis, reinforces credibility.
Predictive regulation rewards openness.
Organizations that treat regulators as stakeholders in long term risk mitigation rather than adversaries in episodic review may benefit from more constructive dialogue.
Ultimately, predictive regulation reflects a broader transformation in healthcare governance. Data is no longer passive. It is actively shaping oversight decisions.
For life sciences companies, this means regulatory strategy must incorporate analytics literacy, cross functional coordination, and enterprise level data governance.
The future will likely involve even more integration of real-world data, digital monitoring tools, and cross-border information sharing. Agencies will continue refining models that detect anomalies, assess systemic risk, and prioritize oversight resources.
Organizations that align with this evolution will find themselves better prepared not only for inspection, but for sustainable growth.
Predictive regulation is not about predicting failure. It is about identifying risk earlier and allocating attention where it matters most.
Companies that internalize that philosophy strengthen both compliance posture and operational discipline.
And as regulatory ecosystems become more data-driven, those strengths will increasingly define competitive advantage.
As we look ahead, predictive regulation is not a temporary shift. It represents a structural evolution in how oversight is conducted.
Regulatory agencies are operating in the same data-rich environment as the rest of the healthcare ecosystem. They have access to broader data sets, more advanced analytics, and greater cross-border visibility than ever before. That reality is reshaping expectations for transparency, consistency, and control.
For organizations, the response should not be reactive. It should be strategic.
Predictive regulation encourages companies to strengthen internal visibility before external scrutiny occurs. It pushes leadership teams to examine trends across deviations, safety reports, submission quality, and supply chain performance with greater discipline. It reinforces the importance of harmonized systems and integrated data governance.
In many ways, this evolution rewards organizations that were already investing in mature quality infrastructures. Continuous monitoring, structured management review, and proactive risk mitigation are not new concepts. What is changing is the speed and scale at which regulators can observe patterns.
That visibility elevates the importance of consistency.
Predictive oversight does not eliminate human judgment. Regulators will continue to evaluate context, intent, and corrective action. But the data narrative will increasingly frame those conversations. Companies must be prepared to explain not only individual events, but the broader story their performance data tells over time.
The most resilient organizations will be those that embrace predictive thinking internally. They will ask what signals their own dashboards reveal. They will align compliance strategy with enterprise analytics. They will ensure that innovation, digital transformation, and operational growth are supported by disciplined governance.
Predictive regulation ultimately strengthens the industry when approached correctly. It encourages earlier intervention, clearer communication, and sustained accountability.
Rather than viewing predictive oversight as heightened surveillance, organizations can treat it as an opportunity to reinforce operational excellence. When systems are transparent, trends are monitored proactively, and leadership engagement is consistent. Predictive regulation becomes aligned with long-term strategic stability.
The future of regulatory engagement will be more data informed, more continuous, and more interconnected. Companies that prepare now by strengthening integration across quality, regulatory, safety, and manufacturing functions will navigate that future with confidence.
Predictive regulation is not about forecasting enforcement. It is about shaping a smarter, more responsive oversight model.
And the organizations that adapt early will define the standard for what sustainable compliance looks like in the years ahead.
Thank you for joining us for today's deep dive. If your organization needs support strengthening enterprise data governance, enhancing risk-based regulatory strategy, or preparing for inspection readiness in an increasingly predictive regulatory environment, EMA International is here to help. You can reach us anytime at info@emmainternational.com or visit us at emmainternational.com.
Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay innovative.